when did you first realize that you could perceive things that other people couldn't?
I think it would be more, when did I realize other people couldn't? Like smelling or anything is just a sense to me. Not only can I see colors around people, I'm extremely, debilitatingly so sensitive. So I feel people, and I always have, very, very, very thoroughly. The two together made it so I did not want to be labeled abnormal. And I chose a path in life that would make me extremely normal, teacher, nothing to see here. I'm an empathic medium. It's overwhelming for me really emotionally. And I start to get the feelings of that person as if I am that person. And what's crazy is, and you don't have to believe me or not, it's fine. It's hard to do with somebody who's already famous because
you know a lot of things about me if you want to.
When I do energy work, I'll open the door with the aura and then other stuff will come in. I'm just kind of a vessel or a tool for whatever I need to be at the time I'm doing it. I don't own it. It just moves through me. I don't take credit for it. And what I get is nudges a lot. And what I find is, what do we need to hear to release and let go and move forward? So I want to give other people the power so it's not on me. You guys, to me, are the same aura colors. It's just you're flip-flopped.
Amazing.
But on Jonathan, I see tons of and like little, and then on Mayim, I see tons of, and then like a core.
This is the core of our problem.
Well, you're helping each other.
And the core of why we're very beneficial. We each supply something the other needs.
Exactly. I just feel like this great support and balance, a teeter-totter of energy. It's kind of got a little infinity symbol going on in it, and I think that that's really cool.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you, because you know she knows a thing or two. So now she's gonna break down. It's a breakdown. She's gonna break it down.
Mayim Bialik's breakdown is supported by Cozy Earth.
Picture this. You're planning your summer getaway, what to eat, where to visit, what to do, where to sleep, but don't you also want the comfort of home while you're away? That's where Cozy Earth comes in to elevate your entire travel experience. Elevate your summer getaway with Cozy Earth's luxurious bedding and loungewear, ensuring the comfort of home wherever you roam. Use code BREAK for 35% off at CozyEarth.com. Experience the unmatched softness and buttery smoothness of Cozy Earth's bedding, surpassing even the finest hotel sheets for a restful night's sleep on your travels. Travel-friendly and hassle-free Cozy Earth's bedding comes in really adorable totes, making it the perfect companion for your adventures near and far. Stay cool and comfy during long flights with Cozy Earth's temperature-regulating bamboo joggers and pullover crew, adding a touch of style to your travel ensemble. Whether you're exploring distant lands or enjoying a staycation at home, Cozy Earth has everything you need to turn every moment into pure bliss.
This company, I gotta say, it hooked me. I got one of their sweatshirts and then I just became obsessed. And their sheets. When I lay my head on a pillow that has a Cozy Earth pillowcase, it is a totally different thing. And getting under a comforter that is a Cozy Earth comforter, it is like you have to experience it to really understand just how different they are. They are the best sheets I've ever had.
I like to wear my Cozy Earth clothing and then get into the Cozy Earth sheets. And then I just feel like I'm one giant Cozy Earth package. Want to rest easy on vacay? Take a trip to CozyEarth.com/break, then type in our personal code BREAK at checkout. You'll get an exclusive 35% off. That's promo code BREAK for 35% off. It's our way of saying thanks for listening. And choose podcast in the survey after ordering, and then our show from the drop-down menu. Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik.
I'm Jonathan Cohen.
And welcome to our breakdown. This is the place where we break things down so you don't have to. We got a lot of breaking down to do today, folks.
Let's look at your aura, Mayim.
We're going to be talking about auras, but we're actually going to be talking about the kind of practical understanding that we can have of this notion of auras. We're having a woman named Megan on. She goes by Mystic Michaela. She's a fourth generation intuitive. And a medium, a very interesting woman, very intelligent woman, and a very logical woman who we found a really, really grounded presence, as it were. She has a new book called What's My Aura? And it talks all about the personality types that tend to associate with auras. And just as a quick refresher, you don't have to believe in auras to listen to this episode and to get a lot out of it. But the notion is that just as we are energetic bodies, meaning we are bodies that have a thermal quality, you know, if you've ever seen Predator, you know that we have heat in our bodies, right? And we give off energy. That's just true. true.
We create energy.
We create energy. Our bodies have the potential to create and generate energy. And also we are magnetic bodies. We're made of minerals and molecules and all sorts of things that have polarity. So we are what you could describe as an energetic body. And there are certain people who apparently have this ability. If you listen to or watch the Elizabeth Crone episode, after being struck by lightning, she acquired this ability that she didn't even know what it was. Some people see colors around people, kind of like as a little rim around your head and in some cases your body. And there are people who believe that they can understand things about people based on these colors. Michaela has actually written this book that explains what those colors mean personality-wise in her experience. And she actually started honing these abilities when she was a teacher working with kids and noticing that she saw certain personalities resonating around the colors that she was just born always thinking that everybody could see. So we're very excited. She also has a podcast called Know Your Aura with Mystic Michaela. And hang on to your hats and glasses. This is a wild ride, but I think there's something for everyone in this episode, even if you've never even understood what auras are. So let's welcome to the breakdown, Mystic Michaela, also known as Megan. Break it down.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to be here.
Well, everybody that knows anything about me and Jonathan and our conversations about auras told us that we need to speak to you.
I heard a lot from my own listeners, all about how awesome your show is. You have a lot of green aura listeners, which is going to make sense, hopefully, by the end of this podcast episode. Trust me.
It was specifically after the Elizabeth Crone episode that we got blown up. Our Instagram, our YouTube, they're like, if you're talking about this, you need to speak.
Right. They're like, if you can handle that, you can handle Aura Lady. So, yeah.
Well, we actually did an episode where Jonathan and I talked about Indigo Children. And, we had this quiz and it kind of started as me trying to be playful and Jonathan not sure that he wanted me to be playful. But I did this indigo child.
Is that because we have mismatching auras?
Stop. He's going to make that joke every single sentence.
I'm here for that joke. I'm here for it. I love it.
So we did this episode where I talked Jonathan through this quiz, and it turns out Jonathan is an indigo child. I guess he's an indigo adult.
17 out of 17.
Yeah.
Like every single question was like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. It's not just these are all Jonathan's quirks. He fits the profile. So we started talking about, is an indigo child related to this color indigo and, emanations of the energetic field. And then it got into this conversation of what even is an aura. And so I did sort of my rudimentary, scientifically appropriate, best at explaining it. But it wasn't until this Elizabeth Crone episode that we had someone who, wasn't, forgive me, what people say about people who believe in auras. And Elizabeth Crone was like, I didn't even believe in it. And then all of a sudden I started seeing colors around people's heads after I was struck by lightning. And then we were like, something's here. So Jonathan wants to start by asking you if you believe in indigo children.
So I have to take it from my point of view and how I do things and how I see things. I know that phrase was coined by a parapsychologist, I think in the 70s. But I get what she was saying because the way I see auras around people is when I see blues, I call them like my empath aura colors, blues, indigo, purple, turquoise. These kids have an ability to intuitively pick up energy in ways that I feel like is maybe more supported by the generation now than it ever has been in the past. So these are kids that can really pick up the feelings of other people. And I feel like the collective consciousness might have been in a space where we could accept that and embrace that a little bit more than in the past. But that's how I would explain it. Like when I talk about indigos as a color and when I talk about them as an aura color, the way I describe them, basically you can feel other people's feelings as your own. And you can enter their space energetically, and you can feel out in a gentle way the things that they themselves might not be comfortable admitting or feeling. But if you don't understand that you're doing that, what happens is you think other people's stuff is your responsibility, or you think other people's stuff is actually, or your reaction to what you're picking up is negative. When you're actually, I talk about it like smelling. If you're smelling somebody who's smelly, that's their smelliness, not yours, but you still smell it. So that's kind of like indigos with feelings. When an indigo aura is around somebody with feelings, they can't not feel it. You'd have to leave the space not to feel it anymore. It's that pervasive.
This is a really great place to take a little pause here, because everything you just said is still really cohesive with, meaning I'm not looking for you not to be cohesive, but I'm saying the way that you just presented that makes sense to me, because we all know someone who seems to pick up on stuff that other people have, and sometimes they know how to regulate it well, and sometimes they don't. And, I have a friend, actually someone that I worked with, who, would report that she felt very dysregulated. She didn't like feeling what other people were feeling, and it wasn't something she sought out, but if she was around, what we might just say like our negative vibes, she could feel it in a way that she then felt negative. So what you're talking about, actually, and, we'll get into the colors and, this notion of auras in a minute, but I really love how, how we're starting this framing, because, I'm a sciencey person. I'm trained as a scientist. I also believe that there are things that occur that I can't explain with a formula. And I believe that for all of human history, we have known that there are some people who are better at understanding other people than others. They often were shamans, or they were healers, or they were witches, and they were burned at the stake. And now sometimes they're therapists, or they're teachers, or, parents that are just super into their kids, right? Whatever it looks like, this is making sense so far, and I'm feeling safe.
Good. It's interesting you say that, because a lot of indigos, I notice, go into the healing fields in a scientific yet one-on-one way. I'll see indigo auras as speech pathologists or people who work in hospice care. So it's very intense one-on-one interactions where it does require research and science-based best practices, but also requires a sort of intimacy that's emotional that feeds them. Because you can do it if somebody understands what you're doing for them. If they reject it, then it's really hard.
I knew someone who in college worked in a home for kids who had been kind of left behind by the foster care system. And it was an incredibly difficult job. He was responsible for, makes me cry, for trying to give them like social outlets and, all these things. And it's not a job that he was able to do for long, because it hurts very deeply. And I'm not saying he was an indigo child, but what I'm saying is that there are people who can do those jobs not with a sense of coldness, with a sense of deep engagement, and they don't get depleted by it. Or when you're in, when my father was in hospice, right? There are people who, like, you call them angels because they seem to have this like otherworldly capability for open-heartedness, connection, that's really interesting to think about. We already, as a society, accept that. Why wouldn't we accept that there's some explanation for it in terms of, someone's makeup?
Mayim Bialik's breakdown is supported by Nom Nom.
Your dog is a member of the family. Serve them the top quality food they deserve. Serve them Nom Nom. Nom Nom delivers freshly made dog food personalized to your dog's taste preferences and unique caloric needs. Dogs love great tasting meals just like us, yet their nutritional needs are different from ours. That's why Nom Nom's nutritious packed recipes are developed by board-certified veterinary nutritionists, freshly made, shipped free to your door. Recipes are made with 100% premium ingredients, which means 0% freaky fillers or funky stuff. Nom Nom has already delivered over 40 million meals. That's because the best dogs, like yours, deserve the best food. Nom Nom. Nom Nom's vet-developed recipes can be served as complete and balanced meals, used as healthy and tasty toppers, or even offered as a treat. Alyssa, here at our company, loves Chad, her dog, so much. She feels better giving him nutrition by feeding him Nom Nom, and he loves it so much he runs to the freezer every time they open it, even if it's not to get his food. Nom Face assured, or your money back guaranteed, and that's Nom Speak for dogs deliriously excited about dinner, for those of you who may be unfamiliar. Nom Nom is now available at Chewy.com and your local PetSmart stores, or you can get 50% off your no-risk trial box by going to trynom.com/breakdown, spelled trynom.com/breakdown for 50% off your first subscription order.
Today's episode is sponsored by ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program.
Your pet is part of your family and you want the best for them no matter what, but vet bills can really, really add up. That's why check out pet insurance. And with ASPCA Pet Health Insurance, you can focus on the care your pet deserves and cover what matters most. For many pet parents, summer is all about making travel plans, like adventuring through national parks, visiting pet-friendly beaches, or road tripping across the country. Wherever your journeys take you and your furry friend, you can help protect them along the way with a plan from ASPCA Pet Health Insurance. The ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program offers customizable accident and illness plans, making it easier for pet parents like you to help your pet get the care they may need. The ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program has been around for over 18 years. They've helped more than 600,000 pets during that time. They allow you to customize your plan, helping ensure that your pet's plan is as unique as they are, because vet bills can really add up, especially when you're least expecting it. It's simple. You use their app to submit a claim. You'll receive reimbursement for eligible vet bills directly into your bank account. To explore coverage, visit aspcapetinsurance.com/break. That's aspcapetinsurance.com/break. Again, aspcapetinsurance.com/break. This is a paid advertisement. Insurance is underwritten by either Independence American Insurance Company or United States Fire Insurance Company and produced by PTZ Insurance Agency Limited. The ASPCA is not an insurer and is not engaged in the business of insurance.
I'm curious about, is the aura representative of genetic makeup, of ancestral lineage? Is it part of personality? Are these all related? Can you change your aura over time, or are you, basically fixed? Like you can change the expression of your genes. Does that impact the expression of your aura? So that's one bucket. So we'll start there and then we'll go backwards, because I have something also about boundaries and people who are very intuitive, because there's a dark side of the empathetic people as well. Like it can be a burden. And if you don't know how to regulate it, there's a lot of people who feel overwhelmed and almost debilitated by extrasensory perception.
Yeah. And to both of those notes, I just want you to know, Jonathan, you just jumped to Aura 2.0. And
I graduated.
And that is I love how you're just going there. All right. So this is a question, starting at the beginning. I've seen auras around people my entire life, and I had no idea what it was good for at all. And until I started teaching. I was a Spanish teacher in middle school for a while. And then I was like, oh, wait a second, there's something to it. And so what you ask is it genetic? Is it something from the families? I feel like you're born with your aura colors set. If I want to get extra woo-woo about it, I feel like every lifetime you pick a new set of aura colors, like a different filter, but we can go back to this. I feel like you're set with a specific energy that's yours. I think in a scientific way, it's just personality. It's another way to express personality and how we fit in here. And so it's not just how you fit in our social structure in the 3D, but it's also how you fit in energetically too in the 5D. So how you connect spiritually is also your aura is gonna affect that. So anyway, so I feel like it's set. But the problem is we have kids and we only know how to raise them, unless we work on it the way that we think we need to. And a lot of, I would see when I was teaching is a reoccurring problem is I would see, and I didn't understand it as well as I do now back then, but I would see a kid acting and he was a blue kid. So he's a sensitive kid and he's a sweet kid or whatever. And he's nice and he's a boy and he was, friends with a lot of girls and he was just a cutie. And then his parents would come in and then be like, he needs to be tougher. He needs to try out for this. So they'd treat their blue kid like, them, and maybe they were red. So they were more into sports or competitive. So it's kind of like the message is something's wrong with you. You're incorrect. And you're never going to have the space to learn how to work out your own energy, which can cause a lot of problems as you grow and you start to do what you think other people should have you do. And then you're kind of betraying your own energetic flow or how you work best in this system as you were created to do so. Does that, I mean, that's like in a nutshell.
And I think also something that came up in the book, What's My Aura? Learn Your Color, What It Means, and How You Can Embrace Your Unique Energy Signature. When I was looking through the book, it also struck me, and when I was taking the quiz, and this is an extensive quiz. This isn't just like, here's 3 questions and here's your color. Like, you go deep. When I was taking the quiz, I realized how certain answers that I had were actually because of an environmental situation that I did not want, that I did not like, and that I was forced to be in. And it made me realize, like, oh, this kind of way of looking at personality, which, I think there's kind of 2 components to this, but this way of looking at personality, for me really felt like, oh, it's actually reminding me what feels good to me when I remove all of the things that I have to do, should do, or that were placed upon me by a family structure, even a culture, right? The idea is like, who are you actually? So the reason that I said, though, that this is twofold is that there's kind of 2 components. We wanted to have you on, and people encouraged us to have you on to talk about what actually is happening with what people call the energetic body. And there are people who believe that they can literally see an aura, which is a different shade or color, around someone's physical body, around their energetic body. So that's sort of like one component of auras. And in theory, if people are seeing a certain color, what you've sort of been able to combine, and this is the second part, is there are personality features that are associated with those colors. But even if no one has read your aura, using this extensive kind of questionnaire is getting to the personality components that typically are going to align with that color that people who can see auras would see. Is that accurate?
Everything, 100%. Thank you for seeing what I do, Mayim. I appreciate that. That's exactly it. Just like seeing colors for me is something that I just do. Like I see anything, and I see it all the time. And it doesn't mean you can't read an aura if you don't have that ability, because really it's just feeling someone's vibe. And what's interesting is the more you pay attention to the vibes of other people, meaning how they feel to you, and more importantly, how they make you feel, is the journey inside begins. And you realize, oh my gosh, like this person causes this emotion, this person causes this emotion, that's not mine, this is mine, this is my reaction. And through that, which is just a way to get to know yourself better anyhow, you can read auras, because auras are just energy. That's all they are. And it's just something you're feeling, as an animal, as instinct, it's something you're feeling. And my big passion is creating people's own agency in doing so. So putting vocabulary to it, personifying the colors, creating caricatures of each aura color so that you can be like, oh my God, that's so yellow, or that's so indigo, or whatever it is. So yes, that's exactly what my goal is there.
So I do want to know, I want to know practically, and I know that you're comfortable talking about this, and, as Mystic Michaela, you get to, sort of do this for a living. When did you first realize that you could perceive things that other people couldn't?
I think it would be more, when did I realize other people couldn't? Because it's like smelling or anything is just a sense to me. And it's kind of learning that other people couldn't is learning, how some people can't visualize, or some people don't have an interior monologue. I was like, what? You don't see colors like that? And I'm also, not only can I see colors around people, I'm extremely debilitatingly so sensitive. So I feel people, and I always have, very, very, very thoroughly. So the 2 together made it so I did not want to be labeled abnormal. And I chose a path in life that would make me extremely normal, teacher, nothing to see here. I get to help people or whatever. When I started connecting the dots would be in my early 20s when I was teaching. And it was very simple. It was like, wait, yellow aura kids need a good grammar lesson, and purple aura kids need to act out, we're en el restaurante, like they taught Spanish. So they want the whole drama or whatever. And so I would differentiate my instruction based on how I could connect the kids to learning. And I was like, wait a second. Then it got deeper because I was like, wait, like, why is that kid's aura super dark? Or why is that one? And I was making associations to there's more going on at home. There's things I'm getting that are upsetting. There's connections I'm getting between parent and child that it's not professional for me to say, stop treating your child like they're blue when they're red or whatever. So so it was all sitting in me, and I couldn't do anything as my knowledge grew. And I just kind of grew out of that space into this one. But so it wasn't any time I noticed it was like, wait a second, other people don't see this. And there has to be something more to it. And teaching is what taught me there was something more to it.
Stop treating me like I'm red, Mayim.
Oh my God. I'll make you'll be red if I say you're red.
He's gonna use that one.
Okay, so follow-up question. When you talk about, like reading someone's vibe, right? I definitely, I was raised in a very hypercritical home. And I don't just mean I was criticized, which I was, but like I was also loved. Like it was a good mix. But my parents had a very specific assessment of everyone. Like people on the street, like people they didn't know, people on TV, like just there was always a narrative. And part of it is my parents were also creative. And, so like, sometimes it was like funny to like think like, oh, where did they come from and things like that. But what I sort of noticed is that I'm very, very attuned to people. And if I get a creepy feeling, like I stay away from, a person. In some cases, I've gotten other feelings of like that person's a lot of problems and I can fix it, right? So sometimes I go towards that, but sometimes I go away from it. Are there people who don't have that sense at all? Meaning like, you always like, there's that girl who's like, you shouldn't date that guy. You know that he's cheating on you or whatever it is. And it's just like, no, whatever. Is that someone who doesn't feel like Jonathan wants to answer for you? He's dying to say something.
I want to qualify the question a little bit.
But it's not your question.
They're all our questions together. I think the question is, do some people actually not have it?
Are you mansplaining my question? Sorry. I'm sorry. I wasn't asking, do some people have what Megan has? Because like the answer is most people don't, because I think it's very special. That's a unique thing. But I'm saying on an everyday basis, there's people who definitely seem like not at all aware of, if you were to say to them, read the vibe, they'd be like, I can't, everything's fine. So,
and is that a result of being born without it, or is that a maladaptive tendency because we're all animals and we're born with a certain amount of intuition, and at some period of time it got obstructed based on family circumstances?
Everybody has 2 aura colors. Some people have 3. Usually everyone has an empath aura color. So you're either turquoise, purple, blue, and indigo. And then you have 1 logic color. Some people have double empath colors. Nobody has just 2 logic colors. So unless there's something really wrong with them. It's not mine. So like, but some people based on, so Mayim, you were saying you came from like your family structure and the way that it was probably like jump in. So I see green and indigo. You guys, to me, are the same aura colors. It's just your flip-flop.
Amazing.
We're flip-flopped? Is she trying to steal my aura colors?
Yeah, you guys are like flip-flop aura colors. So it like on Jonathan, I see tons of indigo and like little green. And then on Mayim, I see tons of green and then like a core of indigo. So I feel like
this is the core of our problem.
Well, you're helping each other because
the core of why we're very beneficial, because we each supply something the other needs.
Exactly, because when you're really, really indigo, it can be hard to look at logic, and it can be hard to take an inventory, and it can be hard to like just sit back and observe for a minute. Let's ask some questions, okay? And then when you are more green, it's really easy sometimes to feel something and jump over it very quickly. Like, whoop, oh, that bothered me. I'm zipping it up. Now I'm going into logic. I'm going to do this. Here's my action plan, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't mean you don't care. It just means that it's so intense for you. You learned how to compartmentalize and move forward. And so with some people, they've learned to shove it someware and they haven't bothered to look at it. Yeah.
And then it comes out in sickness.
Okay, Jonathan.
It's true, though. Then you can get like throat problems and all sorts of stuff.
She goes to the voice doctor a lot.
I've already had vocal cord surgery once. Okay, so let's go back a little bit, because so you're not just an aura reader and a vibe reader and a kind of temperature taker of the color variety. You also have other extrasensory perception. Yeah, are you a fourth generation medium?
Yeah, so it just kind of is run in my family, and my mom is, her brother is, and I'm so glad you brought this up. A couple things. One, I'm an empathic medium. So what happens to me is when I start to feel spirit, it's overwhelming for me really emotionally. And I start to get the feelings of that person as if I am that person. And what's crazy is, and you don't have to believe me or not, it's fine.
Oh, I believe you already.
Okay. Because before this reading, I was really jittery, and my husband and my husband's like, who died? And I'm like, I think it's her dad. And it's hard to do with somebody who's already on famous, because
you know a lot of things about me if you want to.
Anybody can look it up. So it's really hard, but I get that feeling of love of him towards you. Mm-hmm. And I feel it really strong, and I get a big need to tell you I'm proud of you. And I get something leaning to, and I hope, I don't know, you can edit this out if you want or whatever.
Everyone's having a great time.
Okay. And I get this need for focus to attention on brother. And I get something with just kind of like your dad feels like he was somebody you could talk to, and somebody who is very much your friend, and very much like left you holding a lot, and is saying, thank you, and also go do that. And I feel like you do anyhow, but it's also him like nudge, and he feels like that type of person to be like, I love you, now go do that. And also I see you, and I get reap rewards is a big thing from him, like sit and enjoy and really be proud of you. So, I mean, just stuff like he feels very emotional on the other side. And I feel like maybe this is a part of him you saw towards the end, and something he's really expressing now on the other side. So that's what I was getting before.
That's really interesting. It's actually his yard site in a couple weeks. So this time of year is always this time of year is very auspicious. My father was born on Hanukkah, which is the Festival of Lights, and he died on Passover, which is the Festival of Freedom. So it's a very interesting cycle of time. And yeah, he passed in the spring also, which is very interesting.
My Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Helix Sleep.
I've had my Helix for 3 years now, and I cannot believe what a difference it's made in my sleeping. Jonathan loves his Helix mattress. My kids love theirs. The Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, including their award-winning Luxe and ultra-premium Elite collections. The Helix Plus, a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers, and the Helix Kids mattresses, designed for growing bodies and endorsed by child sleep experts. Take the Helix Sleep Quiz, find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes, and your personalized mattress will be shipped straight to your door free of charge. Helix offers a 100-night trial and a 10 to 15-year warranty to try out your new Helix mattress. Everybody's unique and everyone sleeps differently. Each of Helix's mattress models are designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. Models with memory foam layers provide optimal pressure relief if you sleep on your side. Models with a more responsive foam cradle your body for essential support in stomach and back sleeping positions. Plus, enhanced cooling features keep you from overheating at night. Every Helix mattress combines individually wrapped steel coils in the base with premium foam layers on top. It's the perfect combination of comfort and support. It's even recommended by multiple leading chiropractors and doctors of sleep medicine as a go-to solution for improving your sleep. I took the Helix Sleep Quiz. I was matched with a midnight mattress because I wanted something kind of firm and I sleep on my side. Jonathan likes the Twilight, and these are an absolute upgrade from our last mattresses.
Helix is offering up to 30% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows to our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/breakdown. That's helixsleep.com/breakdown. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Mayim and Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Airbnb.
Jonathan and I both love staying in Airbnbs, especially when we're away for somewhere longer than a day or two. Helps me keep my nutrition on track. If I have a kitchen where I can, cook and do all the things that I need. One of my other favorite things about staying in Airbnbs is you get to stay in a novel place every time. You never stay in the same place twice. And it kind of feels like you're home away from home. I know so many people who could be hosting their spaces while they're away so that other people can enjoy them. And a lot of people don't realize they might have an Airbnb of their own right under their noses. You might be thinking my space couldn't be an Airbnb, but you know what? That's not true. If you're concerned about the time commitment, you can Airbnb your place even just like a few weeks a year when you're traveling, especially if you're someone who loves to host. All those little details that really elevate a space and make it unique, that really matters. Airbnb hosting is a way to earn extra money and make sure that your space is being utilized, even if it's just when you're out of town. Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host.
Mayim and Bialik's Breakdown is supported by BetterHelp.
Many of us are walking around burdened by the weight of something we need to get off our chests. Maybe something we need to tell a family member, a romantic partner, a friend, maybe even our boss. We all carry around different stressors, big and small, but when we keep them bottled up, it can really impact us negatively. Therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. A lot of times we try and get through life like a lone wolf, just like, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out on my own with the brain that got me into the situation in the first place. For me, therapy is the place where I get to reason something out with someone else so that I can really decide what I need to do next. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch at any time for no additional charge.
Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/break today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/break.
So when I do energy work, it's kind of I'll open the door with the aura and then other stuff will come in. Usually I notice how I work because I say I'm just kind of a vessel or a tool for whatever I need to be at the time I'm doing it. I don't own it. It just moves through me. I don't take credit for it. And what I get is nudges a lot. And what I find is I usually, it's kind of like, how do we move forward? And what do we need to hear to release and let go and move forward? So I feel like that's when I get mediumship, that's usually what it has to do with. And sometimes people on the other side just like to gossip. They do. And it's something that they do.
Something that I find really interesting about the way you talk about, your abilities, is, what would it be like if every time any of us felt something, we didn't second guess it and we didn't explain it away and we didn't try and say like, that's silly or I shouldn't feel that. And for people like you, it's kind of like the veil has been lifted on all of those warning signs that our culture gives us that like you'll be perceived as crazy or people won't understand. And especially if you come from a community or a family or you're, raised in a place where that's supported, it can really be, brought out. But, I get hunches all the time. We all do. It's just if you're not in a culture to know what they mean, it doesn't mean anything, right? Or who knows how many times Travis, Valerie, or I are walking around and we're getting, we're feeling someone else's spirit and we just don't know it. And instead we're just like, my tummy hurts or like, I shouldn't have had that burrito. I'm not talking about Jonathan because Jonathan is dialed into this frequency.
Absolutely right. I like to tell people the little ways that spirit is trying to communicate with them. There's a lot of things like if you ever think you see somebody who died, like let's say, I don't know, this truly, like if you're, I was watching a movie that looks exactly like my brother who passed, or I was at the park and I could have sworn I saw my cousin, but he died. It's so weird. Like that's them kind of messing with you a little bit, or you see their birthdays pop up a lot, or I don't know, something of note goes missing and then you find it 2 days later. You're like, hey, wait a second, so yeah, it's instead of shrugging it off, just be like, hey, hi, hey, I see you. Because what I always say, risk versus reward, like what do you have to lose? So you're silly or something. It doesn't matter. That's my thought.
I heard someone say the other day, is my life better believing in something or not believing in something? And, for many people, it's like my life heads in a direction of hope when I believe that, let's say, there's a God that wants the best for me, right? That's where that belief can lead you. And not believing that leads you to a possibility for despair or feeling alone or like you've been rejected or left behind.
Ron Funches said that in his episode. He was like, sometimes I choose what I believe in because what would be more fun to believe in?
That's a good way to put it. I mean, you might as well is another one. Yeah, I can see that. I feel like if you maybe change the terminology to something that works for you. Some people, that's why I say this can work regardless of whatever faith or any way that you want to live your life. You can change it to just my creativity is what I connect with, or my fitness or my reading or my books or my art or my craft or my garden. Maybe that's the thing. It's really about not feeling isolated in this world. I think that that's really detrimental for us mentally and emotionally and spiritually, and what can provide you with a sense of oneness, so with a sense of belonging, and whatever that is for you, then that's cool, that works. And so believe in that.
A lot of people are in one of two camps. One, they're like, I'd like to increase my ability to feel, intuit, and have that sense guide me. And the others are, I feel overwhelmed. They may not even recognize that they're overly empathic. They get overwhelmed by social situations or a lot of feeling, and they don't know how to manage it. So for each of those groups, can we do a little bit of like a quick, here is what we recommend. So for the people who maybe are more green aura, and have less blue and are trying to open up their intuitive compass, what would you tell them to do as a starting point?
Get curious about it. You can only do it the way you are. So it's if one's for green auras, let's start there. Green auras like to be challenged. They like to see how they could use it to make their existing life flow in its system better. So it's kind of like, all right, if I understand this, how can I use it? And how can I use it to make my life more abundant or more interesting or however? So it's find a way to make it useful and interesting to you. And then for people who are just, like I can't even, I'm overwhelmed. They're super, super emotional. I say you have to respect who you are. I think a lot of people who lead with the sensitivity, so like the blues and the indigos, what happens is they force themselves to do things that aren't good for them. And they overwhelm themselves. And those are the people that have the burnout. And then I do see, I'm not a doctor, but I will see all the time correlations to the body. All of a sudden, like autoimmune systems shut down and lots of different issues. And it's just your body talking and saying, I am burnt out because you're overwhelmed, absorbing too much energy. So it's like you have to say no to stuff. But it goes so much further than that, because a lot of people who lead with like their blue aura or their indigo aura, their empath aura, what happens is they were probably already programmed a long time ago that their worth is only anything unless they're completely burned out at the end of the day serving other people. So it's kind of like we got to get there first. Like, oh, wait, I was a blue kid and I was a pleaser and I got pats on the back for helping and not really for anything that wasn't helping. So now I only put myself in situations that are normal to me, which aren't good for me, because we'll keep doing what's normal to us, even if it's not good to us, until we figure it out. So it's kind of like going back to your roots and saying, how do I protect this energy? And also, how do I do what serves me first? And redefining what selfish is, because that's not it.
I definitely love the idea of gauging and altering the activities that we're doing to protect ourselves. I also was thinking about, learning some form of, it's not energy medicine, but it is some form of energy interaction. So when Mayim talks about the energy body and explained auras as, we all are made up of energy. And so the idea that it is outside of our bodies, not just in our bodies, makes sense. But for example, learning how to be a little bit more aware of, maybe our energetic field, the energy that's surrounding us, is drifting, and like we have to consolidate, and learning how to consolidate, or learning how to put a bubble or sort of around ourselves so that, people's whatever we're feeling is sort of bouncing off of us or off that bubble or that protective field and not permeating, learning how to take what we feel. And similarly in meditation, the way that we do not attach to what we think. We allow that to move if we're highly sensitive as feelers, allowing that thing to be like, oh, it feels really intense, but wait a second, recognizing I don't have to hold that, learning how to put it outside of ourselves and be a little bit lighter in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your energy body, you can think of yourself just a little bit bigger than you are and protecting that space and doing the things for you that are good for you. It's funny, like when you start on these journeys, what happens is other things kind of just fall in line. You start drinking more water, you start saying no to certain foods, you start saying no to people. And then what's really crazy is you notice that the life you've built up, and I think this is why a lot of people stay away from this stuff, because what's going to happen is eventually you look around and you're like, oh, none of this serves me. Like a whole ulterior version of myself that was programmed to deal with life a lot differently than I want to deal with it now, created a lot of relationships, created this career, created this environment. And that freaks people out because that's when you have to start, that's when you can get overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, from everything, how I handle my finances to who my friend is to who I'm married to is all of a sudden like, wait a second. And if it doesn't all grow with you, then you can feel very scared. So I think that that's why a lot of people don't always clean out their energy because then they're going to have to change things that maybe subconsciously they're too scared to change at this time.
I want to kind of go back a little because, you discovered, pretty young that you had these abilities, or rather they were just sort of innate. And at some point, did you share this with your parents? And that's when you found out that your mother also had this ability? I'm curious about this, did your grandparents did your grandmother also have this ability? How did that happen that you sort of found out that this is a thing? Because, there also is a genetic basis to all sorts of perception. There's it's not as strict as I have a colorblind child. It's not like that. Like, oh, we can trace that to my maternal grandfather was colorblind and I carried the gene and I gave it to him. It's not like that, but we inherit genes for how we interact with people. We inherit genes for empathy. We inherit genes for all sorts of things. So that's why you can see this in families. I'm curious a little bit how, did that give you a sense of comfort, or did you kind of need to find in your own way how to be as a person who is perceiving things that many people are not?
Yeah, so I was raised super Irish Catholic, which is very in contrary to what my family does. So it's kind of a duplicitous upbringing because we would go to church. I went to Catholic school. I mean, this is not something Catholics do, okay? And we weren't allowed to tell anybody that my mom's doing readings. And one of my chores growing up is set up the reading table, and my uncle's doing readings in his apartment, and my grandma was doing readings, and my great grandma was doing so it's super dysfunctional. so I think I kind of came out with
it. It's like Encanto. It's like a real life Encanto. Everybody had a gift. I'm like, what's your gift gonna be? Oh, I just got chills.
That's so fun. That's a fun way to think about it.
It's like, here's Megan, what's she gonna be?
Yeah. And I'm like, colors. Wow. And they're like, oh, we don't know what to do with that. Go be a teacher. I was like, okay. So it was just really normalized. So to the point where it wasn't super special. And it was also scary because I associated with being shunned from an entire community and everybody I knew. People don't, I came out with this, people that I went to school with unfriended me on Facebook. It's they can't handle it because they're still in whatever their perception. So I had to come out a little differently about it than my family did. So as public as I am is very different from the rest of them. So I think that was a little weird. And also the way I talk about it, because I'm big on teaching, We all have our own styles. Like they're more like they were more of their time. So it's like, come in and I'll tell you, like that. Mine's more, well, let me just teach you how to do it yourself and let me just talk about it. And I have a podcast. So we do it so differently. So that part was weird. That part was a little difficult. But the idea that I see colors around people and I do readings, we just talk about that like it's what was on TV last night. Like that's not. So that did help a lot because I never shut it down from them. I shut it down from society, which some people get both. They get shut down both, but I didn't get shut down at home.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about what that backlash is and also what do you think people are what are they afraid of? I mean, you could say what are they skeptical about and I'm sure we can probably guess. But yeah, I'm curious what do you think what's people's beef?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of bad people out there. There's a lot of people who call themselves spiritual who take advantage of people. I mean, the people I see, they come to me at really, really vulnerable times in their life. And this is something that if you're not the right person, you can completely take advantage of them. And I feel like people are wary of that. And I totally get that. That's one thing. And that I actually agree with. I'm like, I'm always listen to yourself. Like, this is just advice. You make your own destiny, all that. But I think that that's the first thing. The second thing is evil, kind of misconceptions about where this comes from or who's really talking to them and stuff like that. Just the backlash I would get people. I mean, I've had people say awful things to me. It really hurt my feelings, especially in the beginning. And
would they say that you were witchy?
Yeah, like that when I, just really scary stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, like I don't operate in that at all. But yes. So people associate it with very evil and negative energy. And that, that just goes back forever. So that to me is something that it does hurt my feelings, but that's my ego involvement. So when my ego gets involved, my feelings get hurt. So I have to tell myself, like, listen, like, it's not about me. I have to stand in my truth and know I'm just trying to help and, separate myself from that, my own feelings, because people are going to believe, they come to you kind of with a pre-notion of what it is sometimes. But this is why I didn't want to do it. Because I saw what my family went through. Also, my own programming was like, oh, don't tell anybody. Oh my God, don't tell anybody. My whole life, like this fear around it, hide it, hidden, shh, don't tell. So that stuck with me. So breaking out of that was, I think I still struggle with it, believe it or not, in little spaces. Like if I meet I just went home over spring break and, just seeing people I used to know, I was like, I do readings, it's like, come on, like, you can start at square one sometimes because I don't want to feel their backlash. I don't want to feel them having thoughts or judgments about it because I'm going to feel it all. So that's kind of my own thing, but I broke through it.
One of the things that Elizabeth Crone talked about, because she did start doing readings after she was struck by lightning and started literally seeing auras, and someone said, you can now tap into all sorts of things in the universe. And she said it was like literally easy. It was not even an effort for her. She would sit down with someone and she said it was just like she knew exactly the answer when they would ask. And she said it wasn't coming from a place of arrogance. She said she felt she could just like slice through time and understood, what people's issues were. And she felt very burdened and talked about, stopping because she had to answer really difficult things. And she said most people were being cheated on or taken advantage of financially or had horrible health stuff that she could see that she didn't want to talk about. Can you talk a little bit? Because I think it also really humanizes you. I think a lot of people who don't understand, what you do and especially your own resistance to being seen as a charlatan, as a snake oil salesperson, which you're not. But I think, if you can talk a little bit about what it actually feels like to be able to see and feel things that you may not even want to, meaning what is that burden like and what responsibility do you feel then?
It's very difficult. 9 times out of 10 people that I talk to, and this is my big thing is consent. Like if you come to me, it's because you wanted to. And that usually eliminates a lot of barriers because 9 times out of 10, people sit down and they're like an open book energetically. They're like ready to hear it. And that's easy. That's like reading the front page news. And and those are my favorite. I call them my validation readings because it's like everything I said, I don't know you, but everything I just said, you already know. So that means you can go trust yourself. Okay. Like that. And those are my favorite readings to do. Once in a while, you'll get somebody who it's like they know their husband's cheating on them. Okay. Like they know it's over. They know, but they need you, Mystic Michaela, to tell them that he's not cheating. And like, so it's really, they're in their own drama cycle. And I've become some sort of person that can be the bad guy or play the hero or play the bad guy like that. So if I tell you the truth, you hate me and you blame me and I'm the worst and blah, blah, blah. If I tell you,
you're like that friend. you're that bitch who's like, honey, he's cheating on you.
I'm like, but I'll tell you what I've learned how to do. I can say things really well. I'm really good because part of my gift allows me to see how you can hear something. And I can get in there and I can be like, my husband says I should sell things, but I'd suck at that because I'd have to really like what I sold. Because like I can go in and I can say it in a way that you can hear it without your defense up. And I can, and so that is what that process has taught me to do. Because I'll always tell you what I get. It's just some people get it a lot gentler than the people who are ready to hear it. It's easy if you're ready to hear it because we can just hear it and move on. When somebody's not ready to hear it, it's like, oh, okay, let's take it. Because I don't think it's worth delivering a message unless somebody absorbs it. So it's kind of like teaching a lesson. Like I'm not going to sit up there and teach you something and I can tell nobody understood it. Like when I was a teacher and then you leave the classroom, it's like, I did my job. It's like, actually, I didn't until I see the light bulb goes off. I do the same thing with my readings. Like I need you to sit with me till I see the light bulb go off. When I see the light bulb go off, I know it's sad and I'm sorry. And I feel that on you too. The worst is when you have to tell someone like it's unrequited. Like they have somebody and it's just listen.
Wait, so can you talk a little bit more though about, if it feels like a burden or are there times when you want to turn it off?
Oh yeah.
How do you turn? Does like a glass of wine turn it off or something?
Yeah, I can't do that. What's not fun about me is I can't really drink. I can't smoke. I can't do any because actually it makes it worse. So
it opens the portal and it just
I can't smoke
does
pot.
it all?
I've never been able to because I start seeing, I think even like I'm getting real woo-woo, extra dimensional stuff.
Oh yeah. What does that mean?
Okay, so I just moved down to Florida back in 2011 or something. And, new friends. Okay, we're going to pass around pot. I know I do not like pot. I cannot smoke it. It makes me paranoid.
Right.
But I'm like, whatever.
Give it a shot.
So I smoke it. Yeah, I smoke it. And then I see that one of the new neighbors I'm with, he turned into like a lizard creature.
Yep, that'll do. I hate when people turn into lizards.
And I screamed and I freaked out. I was really upset.
What were you seeing? Like what? Like
I saw a lizard.
No, that's not what I mean.
Oh.
I mean, were you picking up on something?
So it comes out he was cheating on we were hanging out with neighbors and he was cheating on his wife with the other neighbor we were hanging out with. I had just moved into the neighborhood. So I was like not tuned in.
You don't want this bitch at your welcome to the neighborhood party. She'll be like, all right, this one's cheating. This one's that.
There's embezzlement over here.
Sorry.
But I could have done that without the marijuana. It was just that like it made that so scary and so extreme and like a visceral reaction to him. Anyhow, I forget where I was going with that.
No, we were talking about the burden and can you turn it off?
Oh, I can't turn it off. What I can do is I isolate for it's. So I tell people this too, like once you kind of understand your energy and how it works, you have to honor it. So with me, when I am in a situation that requires a lot of my energy, so something with a lot of people or, a crowded fair or festival or whatever, I do require time after, I got to shower, because I can't turn it off. I'm always seeing things. I'm always hearing things. I'll put up a shell so that it doesn't, the only thing I can do is I can put up a bit of a boundary so it's not specific. And it just sounds like noise to me. that's the only thing I can do. So I'll go out and do things, but I can see why people, and I know a lot of people because I'm in this world and my own family, it can lead to a lot of mental health problems and a lot of anxiety conditions and things like that, because I can't turn it off. But I know how to handle it. So
This is what I was going to ask. I'm going to ask you a really difficult question. Some people would say that you are not mentally well and that you believe that you have powers that don't exist and that you are either delusional or having some sort of, psychic kind of crisis that has allowed you to build an elaborate structure with which you see the world. Now, it hurts me to say that, meaning like I feel it across my solar plexus and my chest. Like it hurts to have to even bring this up, but I think it's important to hear how you feel about that.
yeah, I mean, I would say that's a valid question. I think you should ask that about anybody you go see, honestly. I've asked myself that. I've thought, like, do I have synesthesia? Like, is there I've asked myself these questions, honestly. Um, I guess I've been to therapy. I don't know. Like, I know myself enough where
You feel in touch with reality.
I do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I hate the word crazy, but I'll say to myself, like, maybe I'm just crazy, like maybe I'm just crazy. But I also say to people, if you have these thoughts about yourself, that's good. That means you're not,
Right.
So I've thought this too. I'm very hard on myself. I have a lot of imposter syndrome. I'm very sensitive. I'm extremely emotional. When I tune into somebody during a reading, they're my whole universe. And that's why a lot of what I do is I want to give other people the power. So it's not on me, honestly, so I can teach them to do it themselves. So I really want to give that. That is how I deal with a lot of my own sensitivity and my own, when people kind of come at me for answers, that can be very stressful. So my thing is like, how do we find them in you? So that's how I deal with it. But it's a very valid question. It's something you should ask about anybody really in this world, especially in the world I inhabit, for sure.
No, you seem very dialed in. I'm not doing an assessment. It's not my job. I'm not that kind of PhD. But no, I think that I think there's something really refreshing about the way that you sort of have a tremendous amount of self-awareness and also, are framing this really specifically. I would like to get into a little bit of the aura stuff, and then I think Jonathan and I could talk to you for hours. So, want to be respectful of your time. But I do want to talk a little bit about the book. And so the book is What's My Aura? And what it starts with is this elaborate quiz. And you can kind of tell, because there's 9 different quizzes and there are 10 questions each. And you can kind of tell which ones are like, oh, I'm agreeing with a lot of these, right? And so for each set of 9, you're kind of getting a vibe. Like there was one that kind of started annoying me because I was like, this is Jonathan. Jonathan would agree with this. Jonathan would agree with this. And I don't know, it just annoyed me because he's always in my head. But
Which is not my fault.
No, it's not your fault. It's mine, my issue. Anyway, and then you score it, and basically it shows which answers correspond with these designated colors. And just so I'm clear, these colors in theory would correspond to what you or people who can see auras would see.
I would say me, yeah.
Right. So if you score high on the red, in theory, if you were to meet someone and you'd see a red, what you're seeing is those personality characteristics, which is really interesting to me. So
should we share your results?
We can share. Now, look, I want to give a caveat here, and it's not even my book. The caveat is you can only answer as authentically as you can access true parts of yourself. That's true of any quiz. I'm an Enneagram person. Like, I really like Enneagram. And so the same is true of Enneagram. I remember the first time Jonathan did his Enneagram assessment, and I was like, do you even know yourself? Like, what, how? and he was like, I don't know. And I was like, no, I know which Enneagram you are because
But she was wrong.
I was not wrong. I was not wrong. Anyway.
I did the Enneagram like 7 times because she didn't like the answer I kept getting.
Oh my God. That's so green of her.
In my defense, and the case in point, one can only answer with the self-awareness that one has at the time that they are taking any sort of quiz. So I also did find some conflict where I was like, oh, this is how I am because that's kind of where my life has forced me to be. But I don't know if that's where I actually would have been if left to my own devices, blah, 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 blah.
Also,
So, yes.
How do we reconcile if someone has high numbers in multiple colors?
Well, she said people will have two, typically.
Okay.
Typically one on the more I should work for you. Typically one on the more empathic scale and then another on the more logical. You can have two empathic. No one can have logical unless you get two 19s on a yellow and a red, which is actually what happened to me. But third highest was Indigo at 16.
Okay.
So I had
But then she had a 14 on turquoise.
14 on turquoise, 13 on blue. You know, I had a nice distribution, which I'll probably turn into a pretty chart and make a piece of art of it. And then orange and green were 11 and 12. Purple was 6. Pink was 3. So anyway, but I came up as yellow and red.
That's funny.
Yep.
No, I mean, yeah, that's the thing with the quiz. Like, you know, obviously I put it in there because it's like a starting point. Yeah, it's for,
And it was helpful.
Kind of,
yeah.
It's you know, it's just something you can kind of, and then like I hope like when people kind of read every chapter, they're like, oh, wait a second. Oh, wait a second. The thing with I'll tell you this about greens and women in our society.
Ooh,
so I see green on you, but whatever. I always say to people like, you be you.
Can I just let people know? Green is intellectual, focused, independent.
That's her.
Yellow, which I came up for, the highest ones I came up for were inquisitive, capable, practical. That's yellow. And red, intense, confident, strong. And then indigo, analytical, mysterious, and peaceful. Mm-hmm. And that's just the first, literally, you know, that's literally part 1 of the book. The rest of the book, just so people know, the rest of the book allows you to examine pretty much every aspect of your life from the lens of the aura that you scored high on or the aura that Megan tells you that you are when she meets you.
Let's hear about what Megan reads in your field.
So now Jonathan wants to get a little more practical and a little bit use me as a guinea pig. Jonathan would like that to be what happens next. I'm just going to sit here.
Well, it's not so official. Like you presented your scores, 19 red, 19 yellow, 16 blue. Tell us how that reconciles for you. And
I trust what she sees, not what my quiz told me.
I think she sees better than the quizzes.
Well, I think so. Here's the problem with green auras, women in our society. Society does not like green auras on women. They like green auras better on men. So what happens is I see a lot of green aura women get put in kind of like the next category, which would be yellow. I see this all the time. So I talk about this all the time. Like people who follow me are like, yeah, that's what happened. Because I'm always saying that society tries to make green aura women yellow. Yellow is more systematic, like little boxes, labeling my pantry. You know, how do I kind of aesthetic, like the Trader Joe haul videos on TikTok, like that kind of thing is like very yellow. And then green is system. Okay, questions. How do I take this and make something better out of it? How do I create efficiency from this and create a better system? Something could be working different here, something, you know, and then usually greens are attracted to STEM. So it's a lot of science and tech and math and stuff like that. And women in our society are usually told like, oh, you don't want to do that. You want to go sew or you want to go host a party, you know? So they end up being these green women get kind of stuck in more societal roles that are deemed more feminine. So aura colors are affected by societal gender norms. And I talk about this all the time because in our current culture, in our society, you're allowed to be yellow as a woman, but not yellow as a man. And you're allowed to be green as a man, but not green as a woman. So usually they get flip-flopped a lot.
That's really interesting. And, you know, the other thing, every single person that I've ever dated has been fascinated with how paradoxical I am and how, you know, in some ways I'm extremely meticulous, extremely organized, extremely anal retentive, and then in other ways, like a real mess. And like, in many ways, like I have not left being 6 years old. Like I'm still like, why wouldn't I wipe my hands on my shirt? And so, but it's kind of interesting then for me when I see these results, and then when I get to talk to you, it actually makes sense to me because there's also a me that people see, and then there's the me that I am, when I'm by myself. And I think as a public person, I have to, put up a lot of boundaries in places. But, my parents were very artistic, creative, bohemian, like, we'll just hopefully have money for the rent, next month. And then I got into science later in life when I actually tried to start having, some autonomy as a teenager. So like I wasn't wired that way, but I've sort of, I keep making my way in all these strange places. And I don't think I'm alone. I don't think I'm like unique, special, I mean, I'm a little bit of a unicorn. But I know that there are people also, and especially women like me, who have these kind of contradictory pieces. And again, men, I think it's easier for society to handle that. It's like, when men do a ton of things and men are artistic and then they're also businessmen, it's like, ooh, they're so dynamic. And when women do it, it's like, aren't you tired? How do you do it? Are you sure? Do you need a break? And so I think that's also kind of interesting. Yeah. Jim Carrey's a good example of that, right?
Yeah, that
like,
is a
oh,
good
he
example.
he
He's
does so
great.
many things and like he's so cool. But then with women, it's like, is she spread too thin? I think she's spread too
Yeah.
thin.
You also had an interesting adaptation to your parents being very free and where you became the responsible one.
Yeah, I took over a lot of responsibility. I
like-
felt responsible for people's feelings, but that was also like I was,
But
everybody's
feelings,
therapist.
family, finances, and so there's like an adaptation that you had to sort of overcorrect for. But you have a really interesting mix of being like super artistic, very creative, yet also wanting a lot of structure. And the happiest you could see her is actually filling out paperwork and organizing things.
Yep.
Like she would love to be an executive assistant or a legal secretary.
100%. I'd like to be my own assistant, but not have to be me.
I think like green auras, I always say they got the vision. Like they always have a vision. This is how I want it to be, and this is what I strive to, and this it'll look like kind of a bottom down kind of a thing. Like, oh, and this is what it could look like, and that's why greens usually really in our society I have lots of different names for greens because I got CEO greens and I got, they like whatever they touch turns to gold greens, or sometimes I get off the grid greens, like people that just want to live in the wilderness and and just make their own water heater or something. So the big thing is vision, independence, and a feeling of complete sovereignty is a big deal for greens.
I think having kids also changes your color. It changes my color.
Oh, sure.
I can't live in the woods because I got to take care of these kids. No, but I think it really can change your color because you're then told by society you have to do this or you have to parent this way. And, I was a total like home birth, like breastfeeding, co-sleeping hippie. And so, that also becomes a huge part of your identity, but you're constantly bumping up against things. And there's all these challenges. Like having kids, I think it messes with your color.
Oh, it does. It does something I call, it makes you wear like inauthentic aura colors, or you can wear an aura color or borrow one just to get through. And then they're grown and you're like, oh my God, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to be teen
I go live in the woods
anymore.
now.
Yeah, I can go get the van guest up, Jonathan. Let's go.
What I heard earlier was that your aura color doesn't change necessarily, but it sounded like the vibrancy or color temperature changed based on stress or health or other things. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I see people picking up a color that's not theirs, kind of wearing it like a mask. I call them inauthentic colors because I'll see people wear them when they don't feel like they can live authentically as themselves. So it's just you get stuck in a role and you think that's who you are, and then you really, the confrontation and the dealing with that, it's very exhausting to wear another energy color.
Yes,
You're
it
doing
is.
it. Yeah.
Well, for public people also who are introverts, right? Like I have you literally, I mean, we wouldn't always describe it as that though, we humans, right? We'd say like, oh, I had to like play the part of myself tonight, right? I also think about, people like Elliot Page, who talked about literally like acknowledging living inauthentically. I mean, sometimes I'm sure we all meet people and we're like, oh, that person doesn't know they're gay yet. Do you know when people are closeted? Like, have you ever had this kind of experience?
Yeah, sometimes it's oh my gosh, I had this reading and sometimes I just talk. And I just say it. and she was single, beautiful girl, single, and she's just like, I just broke up with her boyfriend and da 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 da. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't think men are it for you anymore. I didn't even know what was coming out of my mouth. I'm like, I don't think men are it for you anymore. I think like there's something with a woman, and I got a description, I got a letter of first name letter, and then I was just like silence. And she was absolutely silent, and I was like, oh, like, did I see that? Like, oh my God. What? But she considered it. And like, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, I don't, you kind of know. She considered it. I was like, okay, fast forward. I have proof of this, by the way. I'm not just making it up. Fast forward. She's like, well, Mystic Michaela, because I have a Facebook page. She said, we have a group, the Mystic Michaela Spiritual Family. And she posted and she said, it was like her and a girl. And she had a C name. And she's like, Mystic Michaela said I was done with girls. Guess I am. And I was like, oh, thank God. You know what it is? I think sexuality is a spectrum. And, it depends where you fall on it, whatever. I think everyone's a little different there. Sexual preference, too. I think wherever, however you fall on it, it depends. I think depending what aura color you are, too, it's easier to merge into something or not. But I get it as like questions with identity. Like, I feel like you're having a hard time figuring out where you fit in. Because it's never about, I like boys, I like girls. It's about something else, like your place or how you feel settled or safe. So I'll get that with it. It's a unique feeling.
What aura colors have an easier time maybe being more flexible?
Purple. Purples.
Funny.
Purples can adapt, but they kind of look very messy to other people, but they can adapt. And that is the easiest adaptable aura color.
I'm just looking
they can
at purples.
handle anything.
I'm looking at who purples are.
Tell us
So
about
purples are like your creative artists, like anybody, like musicians and all that. But a lot of people are purple. They can't handle 9-to-5 jobs.
Right.
They, you quit your job a lot. You can't handle structure. You don't like being told what to do. You're chronically late. But in a way that's because, I don't know, it's almost on purpose or a little bit. So
just to see
Change
how
your hair
far
color
you
a
can
lot.
push people.
Yeah.
Do people have joint colors? Like when two people come together or a group of people come together, is there a joint color?
That's funny. Yeah. So I was watching that, you interviewed her. That Duggar documentary.
Oh,
I forget what it was
yeah.
called. Yeah, Smiley Happy People. So anyways, I was watching that and I came up with a term. I'm like, cult blue. Like they're all like, it's like a weird cloud of color. And then I was like fascinated by it. So I started watching, I watched like one on polygamy. I'm like, oh my God, they all have like a cult blue color. But I think you're asking in more healthy situations. And my answer would be, yeah, that too. But it's more kind of a collective vibe. So I noticed different geographical locations, people will kind of have another color a little bit. Like New Yorkers tend to wear red. And I think that's just because they have to deal with the city, stuff like that. LA, they were yellow. I don't know.
Yeah, I was more thinking like two people, like Em and I, it's two people who have like complementary colors. If you come together, does it create another, not just the 2.5 or 3 colors each of us have, but like
You want to make an aura, baby?
Like your own. Oh my God.
Like, does the studio look different when Em is in it by herself versus when I'm in it with her? Like, how does it change?
Okay, so there's no aura baby, but I do.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, you guys, you're so cute. I do see your aura. Like your auras do merge. There's like an energy between you that seems like it's communicating. I think when you're with somebody like a very serious relationship where you're in each other's thoughts and minds, I will see people wearing their spouse's color sometimes or their partner's color, and it's not a bad thing.
That's called codependency.
She wears my shirts all the time.
Is that, but would that be the auric equivalent of codependency? Meaning I will take on what you are so that we are more compatible in your eyes?
It depends how bad that is for you or not. And if the person you're codependent on is toxic or not, I guess. Because I think it's hard for empath auras not to be a little codependent since you're constantly feeling other people's feelings as your own. So you have to learn how to pick the right people to have around all the time if you're going to wear them all the time.
I was going to ask a hard question. There's a lot of strife in the world. There's a lot of pain in the world. And when you mentioned geographically, I was curious, can you sense pain and sadness? Either I'm assuming on an individual level, but I wonder, can you sense it on larger scales as well? Is that something you tap into?
Yeah, it's hard. I think there's an emptiness that people have when they're going through something horrific, either individually or as a collective. I think we see a lot of that on the news. There's just a hollowness in their energy. And I feel, when people say the light went out of their eyes, that kind of thing, what they're saying is there's a disconnect, possibly for survival or whatnot. And I see it as a hollowness with the energy. They're not quite there. It's hard for me to tap in. It's hard for me to feel them.
Mm. Oh, that's sad. I mean,
It's
because
very
that means
sad.
it's hard for people to be reached, which, psychologists and psychiatrists have been reporting in trauma for hundreds of years, right? People who have had deep loss can be hard to reach. Jonathan asked, what does it look like when you see someone wearing someone else's color? Meaning, how do you know that that's not their color? Is there something you feel that like, ooh, I can tell that's not yours? What does that feel like?
So it started when I was teaching because kids don't really wear inauthentic aura colors, but then their parents would come in for conferences and I'm like, oh my God, why does their aura look weird? It looks kind of like a skinwalker, but with aura colors. It's like they have their aura and it's beautiful and pretty, like in the aura photos or whatever. And then it's just like something slapped on there, like that. And it just doesn't look right. But beyond the look, it doesn't feel right. So yeah, and you've all felt somebody wearing
Totally.
an inauthentic aura color.
Yep.
It's somebody who it's like, why are you trying?
Oh, I have a
like
good
that?
one. You
Yeah.
know what really used to get my goat? So I've never thought about this in this context, but Megan's bringing it all out. One of the things that was the hardest for me when I had kids was going to the park. Not because I didn't like going to the park with my children. My children were adorable at the park. They had chunky legs and they would waddle around and they liked the swing and, and they would look at other kids. They didn't want to engage with other people, but we had a good time. I could not tolerate it, not because I was famous, not because I was recognizable. I could not tolerate being around people being mean to their children in particular. And not just mean, because also people have different parenting styles, and I try to be not judgmental. But one of the things that I have written articles about, and people asked for my head on a platter, was I was very big, and this I was taught by my RIE educator, which is Resources for Infant Educators, which is a style of kind of hands-off parenting, where you do not force a child to say thank you. Meaning, you can model saying thank you. You can say, especially when kids are little, you can say thank you when someone gives them something. But say thank you was something I never said to my children.
And you don't make them hug people when they don't want to.
Don't make them hug people when they don't want to, even if it's uncomfortable. You don't do that. But the notion of say thank you and that notion of kind of, the tendency we have in our society to always be on top of children for them to do the thing that we want. And of course, I want my children to be polite. Of course, I want my children to. But the notion of looking at a child's face when a parent is saying to them, say thank you, it would make me nuts. And now I'm thinking it wasn't just me being judgmental or me saying they're doing it wrong. I was seeing that the child was in pain because there's something that doesn't make sense to a 2 or 3-year-old, right?
And you were feeling this person's probably insecure energy, needing the child to make sure they made them a good mom.
Wow.
So that's a lot of flip and
yeah. That's a full
so
stop
it's like,
right there.
I need to be a good mother. This is your responsibility, 2-year-old. And the kid's like, I don't want to do that for you. This is my gift for you that I won't do it for you because it'll make you stand in your own truth. And then you're going to get punished for that. You're bad.
You may see auras. I see children trying to make their parents stand in their own truth.
Yeah, that's what you felt. It was like Like that's children's gift to us. They trigger us so we can be like, whoa, what's wrong with me that I need my kid to do this? Like, what do I need to feel here that I don't have in my own?
And that's why my children never got to go to the park.
It's like, we're just not coming here anymore.
I don't think my son said goodbye to anyone until he was 8. And it was
still doesn't
so
want to say
awkward.
goodbye.
He still doesn't. He'll still just walk away.
That's a different issue.
I love how authentic that is. I think that's authentic, and I love that. I mean,
we'll go to the park, have an amazing time, play pickleball with people, and I'm like, bye, see you later. Great to play with you. He's in the car. I'm like, dude, what's going on?
You're also Canadian. You have a Canadian aura, Jonathan.
Oh, I love Canadians. Canadians are so nice. I love reading Canadians. They're like my favorite.
All right. Speaking of reading Canadians,
okay, so
we heard that M.
Let's pivot to Jonathan.
Has a lot of green, a lot of indigo. You're logical. You're also emotional. You're all the things.
I think my aura is queer. Just saying. I am curious because Jonathan is this incredibly creative. He's like an idea generator. Sometimes too many ideas. Like he will just crank out ideas. He can be scattered. We've done the ADHD quiz. We've done it. He passed with flying colors. And he's also incredibly skilled. He's a co-founder of a tech company. And he's incredibly skilled. He's a futurist. He thinks of things that don't yet exist. He often thinks of things that then are invented, and he'll be like, do you remember when I told you? And it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Jonathan also, was a very special child who also his older sister is very intuitive. So he was trained in Reiki and energy healing. So he feels things other people don't. He sees things other people don't. He knew that we were going to connect long before I did. Like, there's a lot of special. I think he's very magical, but he's also, like I said, very, very logical and brainy.
I do think I sit on the intersection of creativity and practicality because I've worked in the business world, often in innovation and startups and technology companies. So I've played that balance between I can be super creative, but I need to be very practical in terms of how things are delivered. And so an idea is only as good as how it can be brought to life. So there's always really a balance. And I came from the film world where people at that time had just were just dreaming. And what would be the best thing? And I'm like, the best thing is the thing that we can get for free and actually make. So this is fantastic. But I don't have 7 years to wait around until a studio buys this. Let's actually think about what's possible.
So what I was saying for my, that it's hard to be green in a woman in our society. It's very hard to be indigo in a man in our society. And that's just because of, obviously the boys don't cry and boys aren't emotional and that kind of nonsense that's shoved down our throats. And with you, I see a ton of indigo, but your indigo is very layered. So when you talk about intuitive, feeling people, it's good that you have the green because I feel like you can use it as a shield here and there and use it as kind of a filter for when you want to take a break or put something down. But I feel like sometimes you can't. So with you, the whole scattered thing is just everything's coming at you at once, like a meteor shower all the time. And it's how you work. That's the thing. That's how you work.
I just go pick stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I'll be in a quiet zone and I'll feel like, oh, I don't have any ideas. I don't know what's going on. And then I'm like, I really need to find something. And then I need some inspiration. And then all of a sudden it's just it just comes in and it feels like the process is organizing, prioritizing, seeing what's the most practical in terms of what can be executed first. But yeah, it comes in.
See, that's awesome. Yeah, I sometimes the way that your aura is, I'll say it's like looking in a window and looking outside of it at the same time. It's very hard to explain to people. It's kind of feeling like I can see in, I can see out, I can see it all happening at the same time. And it's it's kind of like gears shifting. You can kind of see how they're all working together and interplaying before it even happens. But the process to that can look a little messy to other people. But once you have it locked and loaded, then your green comes in and it's oh, okay, here we go. Now I'll map it out. And then we just follow the plan. At that point, you might be kind of bored with it too. I can see with you starting a lot of things because that's the fun part.
That's
but finishing
Jonathan.
it is oh.
And then he just like leaves it. And then he's like, why
Yeah.
is no one executing the beautiful thing that I created for you all? And I'm like, because you abandoned it.
I didn't abandon it. I pulled it out of the universe. I built a plan for how it should work. Now let's go.
Now you do it. I don't wanna do that.
He spends most of his time complaining about how other people are not executing the thing. No, but what I mean is you see it. You see it and you want it to happen the way you see it.
Earlier in my career, I had a lot of frustration because I didn't have the support and the awesome people around me who could like, oh, now we get it after like we all have a collective thing that we see.
Yeah.
Now we can run and do it. And really the motivation I had was how do I build the machine and bring their awesome people around so that we can just come up with ideas and not reinvent the wheel every time, but like versions of things that we create can just be birthed, and then we prototype something and we figure out if it's working or not, and then we scale. And so that's been...
Oh, he loves scaling.
What's interesting is because you're indigo, you're really into people. So it's not just the machine, it's the people who build the machine
100%.
And the people who build the machine are the machine too. So it's kind of like the way that you interpersonally connect with them is the same as you thinking about, I couldn't even explain for a second what the heck you probably do on paper, that. So it's just two different ways of doing things, which I think is fascinating. And yeah, but minutia could probably really stress you out and cause anxiety.
100%.
And yeah.
It does, except when it's related to like very specific things in the thing we're creating, because that I'm like want to get really right. But the minutia of how it gets created drives me a little bit crazy.
And the minutia of life stuff.
Oh yeah, general life stuff is just such a slog.
I joke about greens. They like you'll spend money on what you want to spend it on, but then other things you're like, I don't care. Like
That's very much.
That's a very, I know that some people listening might be like, oh, mediums just like say general things, right? It's that effect of just like, oh, but like that's a very specific thing that is like literally something we talk about almost weekly of like, how is it that you would spend on this thing, but the thing that actually is like needed but involves a little more work, you cannot give yourself. That's really interesting.
I want to tell Megan the story of the first time I was ever in this room. So right now we're in a house that Mayim used to live in. And the first time I was in this house, our children, different children.
Meaning we did not make them together.
We did not. We're on a play date together. And how old? Shaden and Fred were like 3 years old.
13 years ago.
And so we were in the other room, and there's like another playroom that they had set up, and we were in the living room. And I've probably been in the house twice. And then cut to 13 years later, we're no longer married to our respective partners. Mayim and I start hanging out, spending time together. And there's a renter in this house, and the renter moves out. And so Mayim brings me to the house to tour the house and talk about like...
I was going to sell it.
She was about to sell the house, and she was... I forget why we were walking over here, but basically like we walked over for whatever reason. The house is empty, and I'm looking around, and it was kind of cool because I was like, oh, I remember 13 years ago we were in this back room, and I remember our kids playing, and we sat over here, and the furniture was designed this way and brought back some memories. But I had never been in this room. This was their bedroom. And I walked into the bedroom, and I had the most intense feeling of recognition.
He got freaked out.
Oh my gosh.
Like totally freaked out. I was like, how is it that I've been in this room before, but I've never been here? There are 2 rooms off of this room that make it a very unusual space. And I walked in, and I was like, when have I been here before? I can't figure this out. And literally it became so uncomfortable for me that I walked out of the house and I had to leave. What was going on?
Wait, and you never were in this room before
No.
that?
Never.
And he also, he's also said that there was something that he saw of what could be. And what it ended up being is our podcast studio is in the place, that was my that was my bedroom. And also, my second son, who his son ended up being friends with as toddlers, I started laboring in this room. I gave birth in the next room.
I feel like before we come here, we have certain things we have to do. And this was probably just this was it. And so you being in this space and then the future is now because time's not real, so you were in the spot that a lot was happening. And that space is not just at that time, that space was the future, that space is eternal. And you were just recognizing it before it even happened. So that's cool.
Wait, we're just being very casual about that time is not linear, it's not real, and that Jonathan can experience. Can everybody experience all the times at once or just certain people?
I think everybody can. They might not realize they're doing it. They might just get a panic attack or like anxiety, or they stress out or what. Sometimes things are anxiety and some things are those chemical reactions to things. Sometimes they're caused because your soul recognition triggers your body's response.
So I want to stop us. You just said that sometimes what we might think is a panic attack or, anxiety or I need to get out of here or I feel sick, that could be what you're defining as a soul recognition of something that has a bodily sensation because we don't know how to access it.
Yeah, I'm big on mental health. Like I said, I've been to therapy. I'm big on all those resources and everybody. And I totally believe in that 100%. Personally, I do feel that what happens is that when something very psychic happens or a soul recognition moment or something like Jonathan experienced, your soul starts to shift and awaken in you. Your body, you're in a human body that does not like change. So it's going to trigger your fight or flight or whatnot response. And it's going to trigger bodily responses to psychic or soul happenings. And that happened to me a lot when I was teaching because I wasn't able to say what I needed to say. So it was bottling up in me, or I would get something and I would stress out, or I'd feel somebody's loved one and I wasn't saying it. So I'd start getting really emotional because like your body will react to anything really. Like I'm sure you've even been around somebody and there's something up with them and you start feeling it and your body starts feeling sick and you start like that. And it's just, you're just picking up the energy and your body's having a response to it because it's weird.
Before I started the company with my co-founder that we have started, Lodic AI, there was a period of many months, actually, that he and I were working together that I had many, many moments of intense déjà vu. And actually, the weeks leading up to Mayim reaching out to me, when we hadn't spoken in 8 years, we had kept in touch through email. I had moved from Los Angeles back to Toronto and we'd exchanged a few emails, but it had been more than 8 years since we've spoken. And
I think it was 6, but okay.
And the week before she emailed me, I was working in Austin, Texas, and I was literally channeling ideas. I was building out an entire media content strategy plan for a company that my co-founder was working at. And one of the books that I was referencing for this media, because it was going to be media about sort of awakening and consciousness and how you can break out of patterns. And one of the books that I was referencing to a group of like 20 people that they should really read was Michael Singer's Untethered Soul. And that book, I was trying to explain the importance of it to people. And it was Friday. I remember leaving the office. And Friday night, Mayim emails me and says, "Hey, Happy New Year. It's been a while. Have you read this book?" And she talks about the untethered soul and then responds to the email, like continues on the email. It was a short email. I read that and I like literally fell off my chair because I was like, the level of synchronicity. So, I've shared that on the podcast before on the Michael Singer episode, which turns out to be our most popular episode on YouTube. And I mean, it's a fantastic conversation. But I guess the question is, the role of déjà vu, of synchronicity, of feelings of intense, some people think it's anxiety. I don't know what it was when I was standing in this room, but it was literally just a visceral sensation that I needed to pay attention to. Because I think it's important that we give people sort of the concrete tools of like, what are these sensations and are there signals from the universe that are trying to help us pay attention and show us, hey, you're on the right track? Or when are we off the right track? When I hear you talking about like the aura like a piece of cheese stuck on if it's not yours. Like that feels like
Right.
cumbersome, right? That image is cumbersome. And it's like, oh, clearly that doesn't help us get where we need to be if, in fact, we do all have a destiny. And a lot of, the self-help out there or the empowerment or the how do I, make my life better is how do I achieve the things that I want? And maybe my soul has a purpose and I have a destiny and I want to break free from whatever rut I'm in order to do the things in this life that I'm capable of and or meant to do.
I feel like, yeah, it's a big question. We were all gifted energy. And that's what keeps us running. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us seeking. That energy, the first step in starting to really hear the universe, whatever that word means to anybody, is asking myself, what am I doing with my energy? And so asking yourself very little things. I'm driving in the car. Do I want to drive in the car? What music do I want to listen to? What do I really want to do? Who do I really want to call? I have a lunch date with this person. Do I really want to go to lunch with them or why? Starting to have these really important conversations with ourselves. And that it doesn't mean you don't have to do it. It has to mean that you're faced with saying to yourself, okay, I'm doing it even though I don't want to, or I'm doing it and I'm being robotic and I'm doing it, or I'm doing it and actually I'm not going to do it, or whatever. So it's starting to know your energy. And then it's starting to further the conversation and ask yourself, what does my energy need? What is my energy? Then you start hearing. Then you start opening yourself up. Then all of a sudden you meet somebody and you know what right is, or you know what wrong is, or you know what whatever is. And to you, then it can feel like what you were experiencing, Jonathan. It can feel something bigger than you. So that's my short answer to that.
It's about getting off autopilot.
I think it's even more than getting off autopilot. What you're describing is, ready, people? Stop people pleasing.
Yeah.
Because I cannot tell you how many times a friend will say to me, I got to go have coffee with this person, or I'm going to have a dinner with this person, and it's nothing against the person. They don't want to do it. And when I say, then why are you doing it? Well, and then fill in the blank. My mom says I have to. I feel like I should. I need to reciprocate. They keep asking. None of those reasons are actually you listening to what you need. So yes, you can absolutely. I mean, I'm a believer in Mystic Michaela, Megan. You can do that. You can read the book. You can learn to read auras. You can understand your aura. But that is the practical application of what it means to actually know what your energy is doing. Stop people pleasing.
Yeah.
Ask yourself also, what do you want? Because you can say what you don't want. Very few people are like, do I actually like this? What do I like about it? How do I actually want to spend my time? So many people, you're like, I'll give you an opportunity to do anything you want for a day. What do you want to do? Like, not everyone knows what that is.
Mm-hmm.
We don't take the time.
It's true. Yeah, so many people don't know.
But that's where this can help because when you're looking through, I mean, I'm being serious. When you're looking through it and you're like, oh, what are the kind of jobs that people who have my aura, my personality type, what are the kind of jobs? What are the kind of questions? What are the kind of things that make me happy? And certain things when I was taking the quiz, I was like, that's not me. And then I was like, wait a second. That's me if I have all the time that I want. That's me if I don't feel obligated to do the thing that 6 people want me to do. I've been given an assignment by one of the mentors that I work with to make a vision board. And it's been my assignment for 3 weeks. And I'm like, there's something petrifying about it. I cannot, I was supposed to buy magazine. I can't freaking do it. But what it is of course, that's something I want to do. I love doing that. I love taking the time to look through pictures and things that I like. I know what it looks like when I see a picture in a magazine that I like. It's usually a cat that has to pee and it's holding its crotch because it's an ad for litter, But those are things that bring me joy. And instead of saying I want to find more times when I do that, And so when I was looking through this, I was like, yeah, what if I even were to answer these questions the person that I wish that I was? Maybe that's who I literally am.
Now, you got to hang out with, I think, because you guys have kids.
Yeah.
I think when you mentioned the vision board thing, this year I did vision board with my friend and all our kids together.
You have kids? You have children?
I do.
What?
I have a 15 and a 9-year-old daughter.
Do they have? Do we do the Encanto ceremony?
My 15-year-old wants like nothing to do with it. She's like, Mom, play it, like that. But my 9-year-old's really into it. So
I love it. That's so hold on a second. I just got to ask about this. Were you ever like, oh, I shouldn't have kids. That's too complicated. I will literally be taking on someone's energy and I'm like making an energy baby.
Oh yeah. I that's funny. I think like a lot of people who get pregnant, I was like, oh, and I didn't think about it till after. And now I'm holding the baby. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? I'm going to mess her up, like that. But I think for many of us who are parents, children are a great jumpstart to our spiritual journey or our self-awareness journey or our therapy journeys, because you're like, ooh, all right, I don't want to redo anything.
Yeah, they're the mirror. But
yeah, it's total mirror, and it helped me a lot, and definitely helped me with the second one.
What color are your children?
My 15-year-old is red and purple, so she's very just focused and driven and says it like it is. And my little one, my 9-year-old, she's turquoise purple. She's like very spiritual and whatever, and has her style all her own.
What's your husband?
He's red and blue. So he does a lot of, because I do this. So my husband is red. Red people can handle, I don't know, like the tough stuff a little better than I can. So he's the one that'll deal with, emails or the business side of what I do. I like to call it my practice. I just like dealing with people. He'll deal with all the other stuff. So that's good.
It's good to have a balance.
Wait, so I just have another question. It's not like when two people get together and make a baby that you get like a blend or even necessarily the same color. It could be any combo, just like personalities.
Yeah, exactly. It's just personalities and like what works for you. And sometimes I'll see aura colors that don't work together. It just kind of, it depends. It does depend on the people. You can usually tell when it's not going to work out. I'm sure you've both been there, and
you're living it right now. I don't think this is going to work out.
You guys are so. Like when I see your energies together, it's so interesting to me, because where the other one's working on it, the other one's helping, and vice versa. So I just feel like this great support and balance. It's almost like a what's that? What do they call those things?
Yeah.
Thank you. A teeter-totter of energy. And it's kind of got a little infinity symbol going on in it. And I think that that's really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it is.
You said we had a lot of green listeners. Tell us about that and why that might be. And if our listeners are interested, find out what your aura color is and comment in the comments. Post in the comments.
Well, it's the Breakdown podcast, and green auras love to break stuff down. I mean, they love to break down engines and put them back together, ideas and put them back together, companies put them back together. Like green auras love to be like, hey, what's behind it? Questions. Give me the research, give me the science, give me the nuts and bolts. And that's really what your podcast does. I've been listening, and that is what your podcast does. You ask questions other people don't ask, and that's a very green aura trait.
Yeah, let me just tell people a little bit more about green, since it sounds like we've got a lot of green followers. Intelligent, solitary, systematic, aligned jobs, architect, engineer, CFO, scientist, media producer, preferred fitness activities, hiking, running, and golf.
Green is our brand color. The other thing that we were really surprised, I was surprised about it, is the Indigo Child episode became really, really popular, more so than, caught me off guard, basically. And a lot of people were like, 15 out of 17, 17 out of 17, 17 out of 17. A lot of
Indigo children follow us.
A lot of people were like, I'd never thought about this, I never heard about it, or I'd heard about it, but never really knew about it. And then I did this quiz, and like, oh my gosh, it totally hit for me. Is there a reason why there would be so many? And or, how does it relate to followers being green and blue? Like, why do the blue people like us?
blues and indigos are very similar. I usually see green aura people married to indigo aura people. So I think that is one of like the power couples I find. Like one person will be indigo and the other person will be green. Like even if it's like green, purple, indigo, yellow, they just like, they mix very well together. So it's very possible you have a lot of indigo listeners too. And also the way that you break things down is compassionate, and it's kind, and it's open-minded. You're open about it, which is a sign of beautiful intelligence. And you allow a lot of different kinds of guests on, and you're respectful. And I feel like indigos like that, because it's like they can learn and they don't feel like they're being mean, while they're learning about something. I think the indigos are very attracted to the professionalism of you two, and also just the intent behind it. Indigos love intention, indigo people, and when your intention is kind and pure, they pick up on that immediately, and they'll be with you forever. They're ride or die. So yeah.
Well, and also, I bring with me some of our audience that, was a fan of me as an actor or me on The Big Bang Theory. So there may be people also who like a quirky, female who's a scientist. Here's a funny question. If you were to, in the screenplay of your life that I'm writing in my head, if you were to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden you couldn't, like, you looked at people and you didn't see colors, or if you started to have a shift in your perceptive abilities, what would change for you? Like, would you still do what you do based on other intuitive aspects?
That's a great question. I wanted to get hypnotized, and my husband won't let me because he thinks that I'll lose my ability. And I really want to be hypnotized. I would just foster cats. I have a total plan B. It makes me no money. I don't care. I feel like I would just go into that. That's what I would do. Or maybe back to teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really interesting experience. I don't know how old I was. Maybe I was about 26 years old. And I went to a medium/psychic. I don't know if there's a real technical difference. One maybe sees the future, one channels from the other side. Do you do both? What's your...
Yeah, I kind of like it, medium is you converse with people who've crossed over. And psychic is kind of like the all over term for all this stuff.
For all this stuff.
It's like, yeah.
So I had a wild experience with this person. I had been in school for a while, and basically they told me something that was going to happen at 34 years old that really bothered me at the time because I thought it was not nearly soon enough. And I hit 34. I look back at that time period and I was like, whoa, that person was totally accurate. And what hit me actually when I was 26 and I had this experience is that, like, it actually rattled me to the point where, like, it was too much information. Because I was like, well, can I change that? And they basically told me that, like, all the ththings I was doing now were, like, kind of fun and nice, but, like, it wasn't going to really gel until I was 34. And I was like, I had all these irons in the fire. I was like, no, that's not going to be the case. And then life unfolded, and it was like all these things happened that I needed to go through. And I went and did a master's degree, and I had all the experiences I needed to in order to get to the right place. And then, I could totally see in retrospect why it took that long. But at the time, it drove me nuts. So a couple of things I wondered. One is, can you see people's future / their destiny, one or the other? I'll start with that question.
Okay. I see, like, I don't control the reading, so it depends. I had a reading today with a lady actually, and the question was, she wanted to know if I was going to go back to this job. And I'm like, honestly, I just don't think that's happening. I didn't feel it for her. I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think, like, what you experienced with that person that you went to go see is like an issue with delivery, because I think there's, like, a way to say it where, you can make people really excited about life as it's lived anyhow without, it's like, listen, like, there's so many interesting things happening, down the line and blah, 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 blah. And you'll get there when you get there. Don't rush it, divine timing. But yeah, so I can see things if I'm shown it, and it just feels like a very straight up yes or no, like that.
You gave Mayim some very interesting information about her dad, which I loved. And I'm not necessarily asking for information from the other side. But before we let you go, is there anything else I should know about?
So when I look at you, Jonathan, I get a couple things. I do get, I'm better. I wish I could, like, zoom in on your face a little bit more. Oh, yes, thank you. Look at him. Now take your glasses off. I got to look. Oh, this is good. Okay. So there's major. Do you have a sister?
I mentioned that. I already told her that. She's not that psychic.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. I get something with family stuff, and I get this thing. There is something with your sister, and there's something with family on that end.
Love it. I'm fascinated. I'm going to process. This is really interesting.
I mean, what's for dinner? That's what I like. What are you going to make for dinner after that? Megan, it's been really, really fun to talk to you. I was very nervous. I was really nervous I was nervous that this might not make sense to me. I was nervous that it might feel, really unreachable and like I couldn't wrap my head around it. But I love that we found a common language to use, to understand these concepts that for a lot of people may feel really, really foreign and really out there. But I really appreciate how grounded you are. I want to ask you before you leave, if you could recommend 3 things that people do to improve their access to their own spiritual self, what would the 3 things be?
Oh, I love that. Okay. The first thing would be make a playlist that completely are all the songs that if somebody was like you said, writing a screenplay, if somebody's writing a movie about you, what songs would be included? And I would make and that is your playlist and nobody else should know about it and it's yours and just listen. All right. So that's the first thing. That's my fun one. The second one would be read The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I'm sure you guys have read that one.
I
love
have
that
not.
book. Oh, The 4 Agreements. That's a good one. And the third one would be, just look for friends that are the people who might seem boring are actually the people that aren't, if that makes sense. It's like different connections because they want to give something to you, not just take from you. So think about different connections and creating different connections. And those aren't, I could have said meditate, take a salt bath and use selenite crystal, but I really want to do 3 ones that can resonate and can really elicit an emotional response in somebody today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. The book is What's My Aura? And your other book, the Angel Numbers book, which we didn't get to talk about today. But check out the book. And where can people find you on social media or website? Let us know where people can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Mystic Michaela and my podcast, Know Your Aura with Mystic Michaela.
I'll be a future guest. Just inviting myself right now.
Oh, I love that.
I think you're the
You're
future.
welcome.
I think you're the future host. You're kicking her out. She's going to be sitting in this chair. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you both. I really appreciate you.
Travis, I want to ask you, have you ever experienced a medium?
I have not.
Also, welcome Travis, our
fantastic engineer. The reason I'm asking Travis, and I'm not making any judgments based on your t-shirt that said, but it's a dry heat. But I just was wondering if you have any experience with like auras or if this was like new for you to listen to.
I've definitely been surrounded by people who are into that stuff and have talked about it around me.
He lives in LA.
Yeah, that's a great example. But I feel like I'm kind of more of like, oh, I understand people have auras. That's cool.
Right.
And I kind of leave it at that.
I'm curious, like, I felt, coming from like a scientific rational perspective of like, there's certain things that just don't make sense to me. Like when she talked about like soul activation, like, does that have practical meaning for you?
No.
Okay.
No. Just to be honest, no. It's very interesting though and super intriguing to listen to and, learn about. But for my day-to-day.
I guess what I was left with is like, is it possible that there's a way of functioning that like she understands that we don't?
Actually, what I want to know from Travis is when you say it doesn't have, like soul activation doesn't have any practical meaning to you, like what do you think about when you hear that term? Like what does it mean?
I don't even know what it means. And
that's a great question.
To me, it sounds like I don't know, is it feelings?
But
what is it? You tell us.
What does a soul mean to sort of someone who's not thinking about spirituality all the time? Not that you're not thinking about it, but
Maybe he is.
But like Mayim, you've actually described this before, so I don't want to give you the opportunity yet.
Okay.
So I'm like, because soul
Not to put
activation,
Travis on the spot.
we first have to say, well, what does a soul mean in a relative
And then how does it get
term?
activated?
So again, not to put you on the spot. So
But-
if it doesn't sort of conjure up something for you, like I know a lot of people who are like,
what does that mean?
yeah, what does that mean? Or like, I'm going and I'm doing my job and I'm having my relationship. Like, what does my soul necessarily have to do with it? And for me, when I'm thinking about that moment, for example, where I step into this room and I'm like flooded with sensation, I'm like, I don't necessarily believe that my life was predestined for me to collaborate with Mayim on a podcast. But I do think...
How do you really feel about me?
But I do think that, my life had a series of goals based on the steps that I took. And some of those were to be creative. And I set very specific intentions years before I started the podcast that I wanted to place myself in situations that allowed me to be as creative as possible. And part of the restrictions for me being creative individually is that I did not succeed sitting in a room by myself writing screenplays. Meaning I wrote screenplays, but I was miserable. And I really knew that I needed the collaboration of other people and that my creativity would flourish while I was in collaboration, in person, and that my particular brand of creativity was not just writing words on the page, but it was actually bringing things to life. That's what I got the most joy from, and therefore needed production. And production after going through film school and making films in school and seeing, there's infrastructure and equipment. And for me, what I recognized is that in order to feel fulfilled as a creative, which was part of my soul's journey, because I believe that I chose that as work, and it fit with, I don't know what to call it, my energy or my general makeup or my DNA or the skills that I had that were being put into practice, which was a very practical creative. Come up with our ideas, be very practical. I love, getting the right things communicated. You call it breaking it down. I'm like, when someone says something that just resonates and is clear and is concise, I'm like, that idea has a truth to it, and I love that. And in order to get that, I knew I needed production, and I also knew that I couldn't do it by myself. Mayim, you are the driver of this thing. So when all those pieces came together, for me, there was what I can understand as a soul activation, because the soul part of it was, this is part of your life's plan that hits all these things that are of value and meaning and that you've prioritized, and meet with, opportunity meets preparation meets skill set. And so there's a synergy there. So that's what I think about as soul. And so you as a creative, business operator, technician, writer, all these things, I would say, and I'm sure you have many qualities and aspirations that we haven't discussed, potentially your soul is guiding you, the larger path of your life, towards those opportunities that are most fit for you to have those experiences.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, see, that's why I love this podcast, though, is because I don't really have these conversations or think about these things of kind of how things are falling in place for me, et cetera, because, I'm definitely creative. I started in music and somehow ended up in production, doing podcasting and filming more so than music production, so I definitely have that creative flow of life taking me in certain ways, but I guess I don't think about it often is what I should say.
Well, and also that flow is something we talk about, flow state, even if you don't call it that, or even if we don't call it that, that's in some ways, that's your soul, finding its flow, right? And finding its rhythm. So it's kind of if you were raised in her home, right? That's what you as a kid would think about. You'd be like, "Ooh, I feel like I'm in a flow state," I'm feeling so indigo today.
And also so much of creative pursuits is being in the right place at the right time, getting that piece of inspiration. It may be I went to this party and I was exposed to a conversation or an interaction that then gave me an idea that birthed inspiration. So really for creatives, as Rick Rubin says, we're pulling from a collective consciousness and we're basically just tuning our antennas to be receptive enough to get that information. And so, when I hear her say figure out what you really want, figure out what makes you happy and what gives you energy and not what draws you and sort of you feel obligated. Naturally, there's always obligations in life that we have to take care of, but leaning more towards those things that, make us feel curious and excited, then that's sort of putting fuel to allow our soul's destiny or guidance to bring us to these places, and then choosing what we take on based on maybe more of a visceral experience paired with logic, but feeling does this thing that I'm about to embark on feel like a good idea because maybe I can sell it because my mind is taking me this way, or do I have a passion for it first?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, now he sees what it's like to be me and be on the receiving end of a Jonathan rant. Thank you, Travis,
Of
for your
course,
input.
anytime.
Also, now I kind of want to like think about all these different colors as like everybody I know, right? Like red is motivated and ambitious. I'm like, who's a red? Blue, kind and helpful. Yellow, curious and introspective. Purple, creative and eccentric. Green, intelligent and systematic. Indigo, compassionate and sensitive. Pink, romantic and innocent. Oh, that was my lowest. Turquoise, spiritual and reflective. And orange, focused and energetic. Very interesting, to think of things like this. I really, I very much enjoyed talking to her, and I think I want to listen to her podcast. I'm curious the people that she talks to, and I'm sure she talks to all different kinds of people, but I mostly want to hear her talk to people who, like me, are green with a little indigo, because I want to hear what we say when she talks to us.
I'm fascinated to hear if people listening to this know their aura color, have ever thought about their auras. If they see auras, this should be...
We have to do a live about this.
We should do a live about it.
I'm too excited. Like, I cannot wait for this episode to come out. It's so fun. Jonathan, I think that we should have you take the test. I think that's going to be what we need to do.
But I'm blue and I'm in a window looking out a window at the same time.
I picture that Jonathan is going to be up all night writing and drawing and dreaming and making things up. So I hope that you will text me in the morning and let me know how your evening was.
I really want to crowdsource a thumbnail for this episode, but people have to listen to the episode before they can do episode art.
And Valerie's already like, there he goes with his generation of ideas. Here we go, and we're off and running.
If you have an idea or want to share your art, you can do so at our Instagram handle, at Bialik Breakdown.
Also, make sure to subscribe. Makes a difference. We really appreciate you subscribing. If you're subscribing on the YouTube channel, hit the little bell icon, ding, so that you can get notifications, and subscribe anywhere you get podcasts. Share this with someone. Share this with someone who you think might benefit from learning more about auras.
Share it with someone who's also very skeptical and see if you can convert them.
From our auric breakdown to the one we hope you never have. We'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or